Lane Kiffin with helmet technology, that is a cheat code versus SEC defenses.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, we dive into Lane Kiffin's recent comments calling helmet technology a cheat code for himself and offensive coordinator Charlie Weis Jr., especially with third-year starting quarterbacks like Jaxson Dart. This innovation could spark the next evolution of quarterback play, moving beyond traditional progressions and taking the versatility of the spread offense to a whole new level. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. Stay tuned as we explore how this technological edge might redefine the game for the Ole Miss Rebels. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We're free and available in all the podcast apps and on YouTube. And thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. And a special hello to the everydayers and insiders who make the show what it is. And don't forget to find a second listen on the network. Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC or even Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy. They provide different perspectives on college football, the SEC, and Ole Miss, so check it out. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, these sports just stop sporting the way we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel to get started. So Lane Kiffin was asked at a press conference after practice yesterday about helmet technology. And Lane Kiffin has been very honest about this for months, that he thinks this is going to be a cheat code for him. And he sees it as a cheat code. And the reason that he thinks it's going to be a cheat code is he is already next level, probably top 5% in the entire country of being able to see what a defense is doing, whistling out to the quarterback, making a quick change, and that ends up being a big touchdown. Charlie Weis Jr. famously has a photographic memory. We've all heard the stories about how Charlie Weis Jr. got 30 seconds to a minute with the credit card of Lane Kiffin. And then the next day he just gave the numbers back to Lane Kiffin and got that correct. Photographic memory means the defense cannot surprise the quarterback if they've done it before. Now, the reason that Lane Kiffin thinks this is a cheat code, before there was a 5 to 10 second period, depending on where you were, like if you were playing a game at Tiger Stadium, to where you had to get the quarterback's attention. They had to call an audible. They had to relay the information out there. And all of a sudden, it didn't go as quickly as it did. It might work that particular play, but it's not going as fast as it could go. Now with helmet technology, the photographic memory, the in-game adjustments that Lane Kiffin is known for, now it is just, hey, Jaxson Dart, Jordan Watkins this play. Hey, Jaxson Dart. Hey, Trey Harris is going to be one-on-one this play. You should be able to hit him on a go. Hey, Jaxson Dart, Jordan Watkins should be available in the skinny post. You can see this with the weapons that Ole Miss has. That is how quickly you can turn it over. And with helmet technology, the speaker to the quarterback not cutting off until about 15 seconds to go on the play clock, Ole Miss averages snapping the ball at 22 seconds, which means the speaker should be on the entire time that Ole Miss is going through this. A defense that is now having to go up against an offense that Ole Miss has with Trey Harris, with Jordan Watkins, Juice Wells, now Deion Smith, all of these weapons offensively that you have to set your defense up to honestly deceive the quarterback because there are multiple players warranting of a double team. Now you're not going to be able to deceive that with the eye in the sky up above and Lane Kiffin down at the field for what he sees. And Jaxson Dart being a third-year starting quarterback, the information can be very concise of what you're relaying in. It's not going to be a situation where paralysis by analysis is happening. This is all just green light, fantastic stuff for a Lane Kiffin offense that is pretty consistently in the top 10 in the country anyway. I expect the offense to take another step this year. Now, I do think that Lane being an early adopter is going to help him, but everybody's going to keep building on this, and the spread offense and their versatility is going to become a little bit different as we move forward. If you think back to 1985, heck, 2005, if you wanted to think about it, progressions were the norm, to where you had a first receiver, a second receiver, a third receiver, a fourth receiver, to where everything was very NFL based. Dan Marino, Joe Montana, that era was the in vogue fad in college football. In 2005-ish, late 2000s, the RPO became a thing. And when that happened, you started seeing things where progressions got very smaller, kind of 1 and 2 pass reads. And all of these things you hear from quarterbacks when the NFL Combine was going on, was a lot of that is due to the fact that the RPO was kind of taking over college football. That led to split package plays where the left side of the offense is designed for zone beaters, the right side is designed for man beaters, and you could check with me with coaches on the sideline. All of this has happened in the spread offense over the last 15 years or so. And the offenses, they've gotten quicker, they've gotten simpler, but they've also gotten more effective against more defenses, and they've gotten harder to stop. They've made it to where you had to flex linebackers out, and you couldn't flex them all the way out because that opened up the run. So they started to kind of halfway, which made the situation a little bit difficult for defenses going against these offenses. Lane Kiffin is one of the main beneficiaries of the spread offense going into this new thing. And he's finding new ways to put the defense into conflict. And this helmet technology is going to allow him to just let Jaxson Dart know. It's like, hey, you're trying to get fooled right here. They're actually doubling Trey. Dion should be open this play. Or whatever progression that they decide to do. Hey, take receiver 3 this time. And a progression that was normal 1, 2, 3, or 4, maybe number 3, you can see that right at the beginning. Lane Kiffin has an advantage of this, and they've been using this, honestly, since the spring practice this past year. And they started putting in and figuring out what Jaxson Dart and the quarterbacks at Ole Miss could handle as far as a sound in their ear while they're trying to read a defense and all of that stuff. Jaxson Dart has a chance to really break out because of this. I genuinely think that helmet technology, it is a legit cheat code for Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weis Jr. with the fact of what they do and what they are really good at. They're good at offense. They're good at doing things like that. They've learned from Norm Chow, and Steve Sarkisian does a lot of the same stuff as well. But it's considered a matchup-based pass game. That's what they do. And it's going to be important to find that right matchup. And this is going to also help them identify and let Jaxson Dart know where the right matchup is on each individual play. I'm pretty fired up to see exactly how this is going to look. The helmet technology, there's other rules, like college football is going to have a 2-minute warning for the first time in a very long time. So we'll see exactly how these rule changes go, which, by the way, the rule changes are for more commercial breaks. You can't tell me that it's not. You can lie, but that's what you're doing. But this offensive situation with Lane Kiffin, he calls this a cheat code. He's absolutely right about what it could be. And as an offensive person, that's what I consider myself, an offensive person. I want to see exactly how Ole Miss utilizes this offense against Furman, against Middle Tennessee, against Wake Forest, against Georgia Southern, getting ready for the Kentucky game. It is really good for Ole Miss that they have 4 non-conference games to start this out and kind of iron out what's going on. You do not want to be in a situation to where LSU's playing USC, which, by the way, can you imagine how little defense is going to be played in that game? But LSU and USC, you do not want to be in a situation where you're talking in the helmet and doing all of that stuff against a high-level team. The important part of this first part of the season is to figure out what you can get away with and do that at the highest possible level. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Coming up next on Locked On Ole Miss, exciting news for Ole Miss Rebel fans. One of Ole Miss's key players might be returning to full speed a little bit sooner than expected. Find out who and why this is a game changer right after the break. Stay tuned. You know, I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, I do get fewer and fewer games. And the sports just stop sportsing the way I want them to. But at FanDuel, they let me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app, dream up bets at any time that I'm in the mood. Maybe I want to bet on Ole Miss and their over-under of 9.5 wins this season, or Jaxson Dart at plus 1,500 to win the Heisman, or maybe, heck, Ole Miss at plus 1,500 to win the national championship. Now is the chance. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day, and thank you for making it the Ole Miss morning show as well. But check out a second listen and enjoy Locked On College Football podcast with Spencer McLaughlin. He gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron with the discussion of all the upcoming season and the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, college football's expanded playoff, and of course more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. So really interesting stuff. One of the players that came out and was interviewed, and Ole Miss does not send injured players, like really injured players, out to be interviewed. So one of the early signs that they believe that he is further along than you think he should be, or what the rumor was begin, is that they put him out in an interview setting. And the second day of interviews for Ole Miss, as far as the second Monday, Princely Umanmielen got sent out to meet the media. And Princely Umanmielen, he said a couple of interesting things in his press conference that he gave up. First of all, he said that the Pete Golding defense was amongst the most complex that he's come across, and that he's called Pete at 10:30 at night to try and figure out pieces of the defense, which makes all the sense in the world. This is a very complex defense, and it's based off of the defense that Nick Saban kind of ran at Alabama, plus what he learned at Delta State under Rod Roberts is kind of a Frankenstein's monster of a defense. And because of that, you have a lot of matchup zone principles. You have the defense and the secondary doing some different stuff. You have some line stunts in the way that you get your defensive ends going. All of this can be trouble a little bit for somebody learning. And Princely Umanmielen is trying to get up to speed as quickly as possible. And he's trying to do it while wearing currently a black jersey, because after spring practice, he had surgery, I think, on a torn labrum. And everybody happened, whenever we've talked about this on the show a couple of times, that as soon as it happened, he was going to be out for the year. And then he was going to be out to Georgia. And then he was going to be out to LSU. And then everybody kind of leaned up as like, well, he'll be out until Kentucky. Well, it seems like that he is very much ahead of schedule. And I think if you asked him, which nobody does in this situation, all players think they're going to be able to play. But if you ask him, he thinks he's going to be on the field versus Furman. Now, he didn't say start. He didn't do anything like that. But I'm assuming that he thinks he's going to be on the field at least that early, and he calls himself day to day. But as they used to say on SportsCenter, aren't we all? This is really good news for Ole Miss defensively if it does happen to where he plays against Furman. Again, just like last segment when I talked about the importance of those first four non-conference games, besides Ole Miss winning them, it's going to be important for development, getting ready for the SEC slate a little bit later on in the season. And Princely and Umanmielen and that whole defense as a whole, they get a chance to work out a few of the kinks against better and better competition over the course of the non-conference slate. You're going to face a Furman team, which is an FCS team, but is a playoff level FCS team. We'll have Michael Borky on the show a little bit later on in the week. I think tomorrow evening he'll be on there. But we're going to ask Michael about Furman because for those who do not know, Michael Borky's from South Carolina, and I think he was a Furman Paladins fan growing up. So we are going to ask him about the Furman Paladins a little bit. But from there, you have MTSU, Derek Mason in year one. They're probably not going to be the best team in the world. Remember how Vandy looked his first year at Vandy. And then you have at Wake Forest, which is going to be a little bit of a test, even though they're predicted at like finishing 15th in a 17-team ACC or something like that. And then you have Georgia Southern, which is probably the best of the non-conference games that Ole Miss is going to see this season. Georgia Southern is known for being a little bit of a giant killer, and they're going to come to Oxford with the expectation of wreaking havoc. Georgia Southern, they have Alabama's uniforms, kind of, but better. Yeah, you just have to see what they look like. Georgia Southern, I think, has a better uniform combination and a better look than Alabama, even though it's essentially the same thing, even down to the font on the numbers. Now, they are coached at Georgia Southern by Clay Helton, who famously was at USC with Jaxson Dart. He was there. They have a relationship. So that will be a storyline in that game. But Georgia Southern is the place where Paul Johnson and they ran a little bit of the triple option. Even Willie Fritz did that at that level. But now they run air raid type principles. So they're going to look a little bit different. But the other Adrian Peterson, not the Oklahoma one, but there was a second Adrian Peterson that played in the league at the same time. He went to Georgia Southern, and he was I think he was a B-back in that offense. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Anyway, coming up next, Ole Miss's young linebackers are in the spotlight, and as camp heats up, we'll dive into how the Rebels are shaping these future stars to master a complex defense. Do not go anywhere. You know, passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Now, it's really interesting stuff. I think Kim Wicker from the Rebel Walk posted on his Twitter that Pete Golding was working with Suntarine Perkins and TJ Daugherty at linebacker and getting all of those complex things that we just talked about when talking about Princely and Umanmielen. He's trying to work to get these young guys up to a very high level so they can go. Now, TJ Daugherty, as most people know, played in the Peach Bowl. That was his debut in the Ole Miss uniform. He played the jack position where Cedric Johnson played, and played it honestly pretty well. Suntarine Perkins also played a good bit that game. Suntarine Perkins is now currently, it looks like, from everything everybody's saying, he's kind of backing up Princely and Umanmielen at Jack. Now, DJ Holmes, who's been wearing a black jersey lately, Chamberlain Campbell, there's a whole bunch of people that could be lining up for that Jack hybrid defensive end linebacker position. I think Suntarine Perkins has a chance to profile like Corey Moore, if you remember what he was like when he played at Virginia Tech in the 90s. He was a 215-pound, 220-pound defensive end that just athletically kind of tore up whoever he went up against. I think offenses, though, whenever they see Suntarine Perkins, especially playing on the line of scrimmage, they are going to audible over to run directly at him. That's just the way it's going to work. So you're going to have to be careful with how you use Suntarine Perkins and how you use TJ Daugherty. TJ Daugherty is looking like he might be the second linebacker that's on Ole Miss's defense. That's what it looks like right now. It could be wrong. We're going off of a picture, all of that stuff. But I think that Chris Pupal and TJ Daugherty right now are probably up there to get a good number of playing time as a true linebacker. I think Suntarine Perkins right now is a hybrid. He's backing up Princely Umanmielen, and he has a chance to be pretty good. Now, the problem and the question that Ole Miss has in this whole process is they do not want to do to Suntarine Perkins what LSU did to Harold Perkins a year ago. As talented of a player as Harold Perkins is, they kind of de-toothed him by forcing him into a strong side linebacker position a year ago. Matt House at LSU doing that. So I think you see Pete Golding trying to desperately avoid doing something like that to not stunt the development of Suntarine Perkins. And part of the reason is going to be how he uses him, how he lines up. You're going to see Suntarine line up in a situation to where his athleticism is going to make him an advantage player over the opponent. It might be at the jack position. You might flex out the jack a little bit to get him off the line of scrimmage where you can't run directly at them. I'm not 100% sure how it's going to look, but I do think they're going to do what they can to put Suntarine Perkins in the best position to be successful. Listen, football when I played, even back in high school, in the dark ages, back in the 90s, the 1900s, you had a situation to where coaches had their defense, and it was up to the players to fit into what the defense is doing. If you're a linebacker, you have to be able to get to here. You have to be able to get here. You have to be able to drop back and have ball skills to take away the waggle if you're a middle linebacker or something like that. As defense evolved over the next 30 years, and with the advent of the spread offenses, defenses had to evolve with them. And they made it to where defensive players, you're not going into a system. This system is so rigid, we have to do it exactly like this. And it's almost predictable of what a cover 3 and a cover 2 and a cover 1 is going to look like. Now, in this era, when you have a player like Suntarine Perkins backing up a player like Princely Umanmielen, they might be playing essentially the same position. The call could be a little bit the same. The lineup and the starting point might be completely different. If you have a call on defense to where Princely Umanmielen, who is 6'5", 6'4", 255 pounds or something like that, yeah, you put him on the line of scrimmage, you challenge the left tackle, and you realize the athleticism, the strength, you can probably get around that edge, and that is how you're going to affect the play. But if Suntarine Perkins is in the game, you do not want to line him up to where that left tackle can put his hands directly on Suntarine Perkins because it's essentially over. You want the athleticism of Suntarine Perkins to be able to put that offensive lineman in conflict. So you might move him just a little bit, 2-3 foot out wide left, but just to make that lineman, when he's going through his drop, his protection drop, something to worry about. And you can also conflict him by rushing into the inside to where he has to worry about where his block is going to be at. It should be pretty interesting. This is a fairly complex defense that Pete Golding has run. Princely Umanmielen said that at his press conference yesterday. It is a complex defense. And because of that, it's hard to pick up. But once you do, you have the freedom to do it from different areas. And the starting point does not exactly have to look like the finishing point. The finishing point is always going to look like the same. The starting point, I think, is going to look a little bit different. And that causes quarterbacks, especially mid to bad quarterbacks, as Ole Miss saw a year ago. You saw a situation where they really struggled against this defense because everything's a deception. And the matchup zone coverage and all of that stuff, that can be a lot for a quarterback. Now you're going to add in man principles with Trey Amos and Isaiah Hamilton and Chris Graves and Brandon Turnage and Cedric Beavers and all of those guys. And now it can be even more deceptive than it was. And that is the reason that Pete Golding is spending time to take his young players that he probably going to have to count on a good bit this season to get them ready to go. It's pretty good. I mean, you're lining up to the way you're supposed to handle different offenses and all of that. TJ Daugherty and Suntarine Perkins, they are massive parts of this Ole Miss defense in 2024. We'll have to see exactly how they go. Should be pretty cool. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports, and thank you for making it the Ole Miss Morning Show. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the number one Ole Miss podcast out there, and your support means everything to us. For your second listen of the day, check out Locked On College Football Podcast with Spencer McLaughlin. He will get you hyped for an exciting season with in-depth discussions on the upcoming games and the ever-changing landscape of college athletics. From conference realignment to the transfer portal to NIL updates and the new college football playoff, Spencer covers it all. You can find Locked On College Football on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And also exciting news. You can now become a Locked On Ole Miss insider, the best and easiest way to stay updated on all things Ole Miss sports. Our texting program sends you notifications on anything relevant without the hassle of message boards filled with trolls. Enjoy a 14-day free trial and experience the future of college football sport coverage where it's just easy for you and you enjoy it and you can be an Ole Miss fan and have fun following Ole Miss sports. We're adding new perks as we grow, so don't miss out. The link is in the description. And for those of you watching on YouTube, we're going to send you to Locked On College Football right now. Take care, everyone.